So what happens every day when you take on your role as the leader is you're in a tug of war. You're trying to bring people up to your standards, and they're trying to bring you down to theirs. It's that tug of war. So, for example, think about a baseball team think about the Chicago Cubs. 2 years ago, if the batting average of the Chicago Cubs was 240 on average, and now it's 290. There's someone on that team that's maybe batting 250, but they're not up to the 290. And so what's happening is you're saying to them, hey, you know what? While I appreciate your improvement and I recognize it, the rest of the team is 290. You've got to move up. And so, but he or she is going to try to bring you down to their level of acceptance. And your job is to bring them up to your level of acceptance and move them forward. So, I'm not necessarily so sure that standard is the right word. I think what you're trying to do is get their best, to get them to achieve the best that they can be, right? And you're trying to move them and motivate them to get there because hopefully as a leader you're seeing more in them than they're seeing in themselves, right? And so you're trying to get them there. So you're trying to move them up to your standards or your expectations of them based on, and hopefully you've had that conversation with them. But what happens is along the way things don't go the way they want. So they're saying to you, while I agree that I should be batting 290, I am still better than 240. Well, that's okay, but that's not what we agreed to. You know what I mean? So I recognize your improvement, but if you're not careful, the rest of the team is going to get so far ahead of you that you'll never catch up. And so they're trying to move you up you're trying to move them to your level of acceptance. They're trying to move you back to theirs. I will say one more thing that you asked me in the beginning of that sentence that to me was even more important. As a leader, and I would say to you, there's three things you have to ask yourself. One is, who am I? The second is, what do I stand for? But the third one is the most important question you have to ask yourself. So who am I? What do I stand for? And what won't I compromise? And that's the critical component, because if you take a company that's gone through a difficult time, you're down there in the Carolinas, think about Wells Fargo, right? A company like that, right? And so many banking institutions down there in the Carolinas and the Charlotte area. Think about that for a second. I guarantee you, Wells Fargo knows who they are. They know what they stand for. But now the question is what they won't compromise. And obviously they did, right? So as an individual leader, you have to know that. You have to say, so for me, as example, as the leader, I won't compromise integrity. I won't compromise safety. We could have a customer saying, hey, look, we did some cell tower work and, we're building cell towers and we're upgrading cell towers. And right. And at a certain speed of wind, you can't climb a cell tower. So let's say that we're working for one of the large cell companies and we're one cell tower away from lighting up a whole area. So they can say, hey, in the Charlotte, Raleigh area, we have 100% 3D coverage. Well, but today the wind's 45 miles an hour and I can't climb. Now the question is, somebody says, hey, it's only 5 miles an hour over the wind. Shouldn't we climb? No, the answer is no. But that's when you get tested on won't compromise, right? Because that's how things begin to creep in, right? Someplace along the way, Volkswagen knew that they weren't getting the miles per gallon that they said, right? But somebody compromised. So as an individual leader, you ask yourself those three questions. Well, who am I? What do I stand for? And what won't I compromise? And I would say, in doing my homework on you, I would say it's culture, it's integrity, it's values. You're not going to ever, violate your values. You're not compromising your values and your integrity. You're going to be true to who you are. Even if that means that you may not get to where you want to get to, you'd rather not get there than get there and not being who you are. Well, that's because you've established what you won't compromise.
Mm. That's really good. Have you ever read the book, The Way of the Shepherd?
No, I have not. And you know what?
Okay.
I got to do that. I will do that.
Because it's about this shepherd taking care of his sheep, and it's all about leadership. And the thing that I'm trying to understand is, even if you take the saying, one bad apple can spoil a bunch, to what extent should a leader take action on, let's say, a so-called bad apple in the group that you're leading?
Well, you really have to, because if you think about it, there are no secrets in business or in life, right? So everybody knows what everybody's going on, right? And so what happens is you have, break it down into thirds. You have 10% of the people are going to be your early adopters, and they're running 150 miles an hour, and they're in. But 80% of the people are right on the fence, right? They can, some of them are either moving towards your early adopters, or they're moving towards your least best. And 10% of the people are always going to be a pain. So even if it's 20% good, 20% bad, then 60 in the middle. The people in the middle and the good people are wondering, well, is Rocky ever going to go talk to the person who's not doing a good job? Because if there's no value in being good, why be good? Now, now your really good early adopters are going to be good no matter what. They're like, their heads down chopping wood. You say, hey, I think we're going to do this. They're running. Their minds are. But it's the people in the middle that you need to move. If you look at sports teams or any teams, how do they change the culture? It's by getting the people in the middle to start wanting to be part of what good looks like. If there's no advantage to being good, because you allow me to get away with, you allow that bad person to get away with things, well, then the people in the middle never move towards being good. They just silently sit there and say, well, you know what, I'm just going to do my job. So you have no choice but to address those individuals who are the bad apples. You have to address those individuals.
Okay, so you address it, and then, because bad apples are bad apples for a reason, right?
Yeah, I
They're
mean,
not just, but like, what do you do? Okay, so you address the bad apple, right? As a leader.
right.
Now what?